Try to screw me over in class? Enjoy your failing grade. This just happened. I just finished finals for university and got screwed over. It started in my computer science class a couple months before today. Projects 3 and 4 were to be group projects. We were assigned a teammate from the class. My teammate, we'll call him Sam, and I decided we'd meet up and work on the project. After discussing what we wanted to do, we found the easiest way would be to work remotely and text each other, as we both have very busy schedules. Flash forward to a week before it's due, and Sam has done nothing. I started working on it and was waiting for him to collaborate. He did not. At this point I said duck it, and starting working on the project. I got 90% of it done in 3 days, and left the other 10% to him. He kept saying how sorry he was and that he was busy. Okay, I get it, I'm busy too. You could have put more effort in. But our peer evils will reflect that. Well, he does the last 10%, but not correctly, so I go back in and finish it and submit it, thinking I won't have to deal with him again. Wrong. The next week we had an exam. Exams in this class had an in-class portion, and an online coding portion, each worth about 50% of the total exam grade. Online portions were released a few days before and were due before midnight exam day. Well, at 7 PM on exam day, I got a text from Sam asking to send an online portion. I ignored it, and he kept texting. It was like he felt entitled to getting my exam. I wasn't about to fail this test or give a leech blood. But this really pissed me off. Then we had Project 4 assigned. It was essentially an extension of Project 3, so we would have the same groups. This project was much harder, and way more time consuming. Knowing Sam's work ethic last time, I came up with a plan. I did minimal work on the project up until the week before it was due. Then I ramped it up. But not enough to complete the project. The day before it was due, I got a text from Sam, saying I'm sorry dude, I was super busy with my other project, and didn't have time to work on it. Is there anything left to do? Now, we used an online code editor that works similar to Google Docs in that you can see who is looking at the file, and where their cursor is. I had seen his periodically throughout the entire last week. He was checking on how I was doing, but not actually helping. So, when he asked is there anything left to do, my response was no. He apologized profusely, he just texted sorry, and I immediately emailed the professor explaining the situation, then proceeded to finish the project. This asshole was going down. A couple hours later I got an email back from my professor. Just as I thought, Sam had submitted the incomplete code, each partner submitted separately, as his own. My professor was very understanding and replied with this: the submission Sam put up was not fully featured or particularly well working, so he did not receive much in the way of points. I was unaware who did what, though, and as it seems to be your work, his grade will reflect that. His failures are his own. Justice served, mother ducker. I got another text from Sam today, asking me what I got on the project. Telling him that I got an A was the most satisfying thing ever. Update: I have not heard back from him. But when/if I do, I'll post it here. Update 2, since there's a lot of questions on what I used to code, it's called Cloud9. It's a cloud-based Ubuntu VM. Now to the comments. I actually just had a similar experience yesterday. Group project with 4 people, only one other person even responds to me. Me and her both complete the assignment entirely. One girl texted us last night, the night before it's due, to see if she can add anything. We say no, take down the link so they can no longer access the paper. Email for approval to take their names off from the professor after sending him screenshots of the weeks-long communications where they just don't respond. And now we just wait for them to get the grade they deserve while me and the other girl get graded on our work. Made one of my best friends this way, and 2 of my worst enemies. It's been 9 years since my first group project, still friends with the guy who actually participated. This is why I hated group projects all throughout school. Good for you. Hopefully he'll end up doing something else career-wise, since I'm sure he wouldn't make it past the first day at a programming job. Group projects have got to be a lesson on how life is unfair and how much people suck, and not actually a lesson in how to work well together. just preparing you for the real world. There's been slackers in every job I ever had. Man, I love group assessment revenge. Well played. And props to your professor for being so understanding. Profs know this kind of crap goes on all the time in groups. You might say then why the hell do they assign it? But learning to work in a group is a genuinely important part of the learning process that you have to learn to manage. Like it or not, teamwork is a common part of many jobs, so giving students experience with that dynamic will serve them well. Most of the time it works out reasonably, but there will be pathological situations like OPs. The solution, which OP ably learned and beautifully explained, is to 1. Contact the professor about the issue early, and 2. Document the hell out of everything so you have the facts to back up what went down. OP's partner learned a very important lesson too: slack off and eventually your partners will justifiably shaft you in order to ensure the credit is properly apportioned. If they showed up at the professor's door appealing for leniency and couldn't explain half of what the code does, then the professor isn't likely to give their case much merit compared to someone who is on the ball. It isn't always going to work, because some profs are careless, but the sooner you can insulate yourself from a poor team member and document the reasons why, the better. If learning to work in groups is such an essential skill and that's why we have to do these assignments, why does so little teaching of those skills actually go on? OP was given no advice or guidance on how to handle group projects of this nature. If teachers wanted to actually teach people how to work within groups and deal with the problems that come up, they would do so. Instead, they just throw people together and hope they develop their own coping strategies. I had a class in college that was once a week. It was a bullshit class that we needed to keep engineering accreditation. I missed a few classes, but was there most of the time. But lots of people ditched. My professor intentionally put all the people who skipped class, most of which were slackers like in OP's story, in a group. I got put in with a smaller group, then one guy left and I was left with half the manpower as other groups. I assumed this was kind of punishment. But the project wasn't hard. We had to read an engineering case study and analyze the ethics of the case. This dude insisted on doing half the work since we were half the size. I disagreed and he gave me as much shit as the dude on OP's story. Here's the kicker though. I blanked on the presentation day, 30% of the grade, and I thought the class started an hour later than it actually did. I showed up and saw no one I knew in class and my mistake clicked. And I emailed my professor immediately. He knew me from a previous class and knew it was out of character for me, so he let me give the presentation alone in his office in front of my peers, not before shaming me in front of them. I didn't care. It was my last semester and I was going to take anything he threw at me if it meant I didn't fail. I passed with a C, and it turns out my partner tried to use my PowerPoint but he was too incompetent to know how to download it from Google Drive. So, he stood up in front of the class when it was our turn to present and just stood there uttering words no one could understand from his note card. Duck that guy. I'm glad he didn't graduate. I warned him I wasn't putting up with his shit earlier and he continued. He probably thought I did it intentionally, especially since I too did over 3/4 of the work. I shouldn't have got a C, but it's irrelevant as I sit at my work desk and typed this. I almost fired him and did the project alone, but I didn't. It turns out that's kinda what happened inadvertently, lol. Something similar happened to me, too. When I was getting my degree, I had an advanced 3D animation class. For the final, we were given one partner and simple objectives: each of us create our own bipedal fully rigged character, a scene with advanced assets, particle systems, AI, anything like that, and have the two characters interact with one another. The final product had to be at least 30 seconds long. It really wasn't a hard final, just more of a cumulative what have you learned in this course all semester and showcase it, and I wasn't too worried until I was paired up with a girl I'll call Alyssa. She was a mom, probably in her 30s, who went back to school for animation because it was her passion. She turned in very mediocre work all semester, especially for being in an advanced 3D animation course. From what I understood she was on thin ice all semester on not being able to complete her degree because of the lackluster work she was doing. But my professor was always very kind to her and gave her extensions/boosts/ to keep her afloat. When the final was assigned, I told her that I already have ideas on what to do, and as long as we worked hard creating really good characters, creating the scene they were in and everything else wouldn't be too hard. We had a month to do the final and had one class period a week. We both had great computers at home that we could use to get our homework done too, so there isn't really any excuse for what I'm about to tell you. 2 weeks after the project starts, I check in with her to see her progress. She was supposed to be working on her character this entire time, 2 weeks for character creation, 1 week for scene creation and a solid week of editing, rendering and compilation. She tells me she hasn't done any work on her character and asks to just copy my file and edit mine. I said no, and that she still had time to create her character and I'll just get started on the scene myself. 3.5 weeks in, a few days until the final is due, and today I learned didn't create her character. She kept giving me bullshit excuses like, oh, my kids have been sick, or I'm just so tired from work while I'm sitting here working and going to school full time getting all my shit done. I told her that while I'm finishing up the scene, she has to create her character in those next few hours or else she's getting an F because I just won't have time to wait for her to finish and then render the animation with her character in it. She then proceeds to make the most horrible character, pretty much a stick figure, with zero rigging. When animating a rigged character, they move more lifelike. When she animated hers, she was just moving the arms and hands or whatever separately, which our professor told us not to do, and it's super noticeable when it's done that way. Seeing her do this, I slipped into my professor's office and told him the situation. He agreed that he's seen me work hard the entire semester, and especially with this project, and that even though the two partners' grades in the final were shared, he would separate ours so I wouldn't lose points because of her. After that, I just waited. I was done with creating the scene and was just laughing to myself thinking, okay, I'll let this girl jeopardize herself by turning in shit work on a final project, especially now that I'm safe and my professor knows. Sure enough, she gives me her character file and it's god-ducking awful. Looks like a kindergartner did it. But I take it and put it into the project and then render it out. Presentation day was hilarious. When ours came on and my character came out/moved around, a lot of people commented on it and said it was good, and then the camera panned to hers and the class just got real quiet. Sure enough, come grade time I got an A+ and my partner got a D. I'm not going to lie, I did kind of feel sorry for her for a bit, but I am always the person who ends up doing the most work in group projects and not getting credit for it. Finally getting my work noticed and watching someone trying to piggyback off of my work get their just desserts felt great. TLDR. Girl in an advanced animation class waits until last second to turn in a really shitty part of a final group project. Tell professor what she's doing and he agrees to keep our grades separate. I end up getting an A+ on project while she gets a D for basically turning in a stick figure. Good lord, with a model that simple she could have gotten away with a bone rig with the cans for better results and it only would have taken her an afternoon. I know. She truly ducked herself over by turning that in without rigging. The character model sucked anyways, but it would have been so easy to just rig it. Oh well.